So there are three things, or there are three topics in which the effect use of dummy will be observed. Number one is written here, interaction effect. And then we will do something called seasonal analysis. This is something entirely related to time series. The, the small amount of time series that you know that in time series data, there are basically four components. So there is something called trend, there is something called seasonality, and then there is something called circularity, right? Is it? Or cyclical phenomenon, sorry. Yeah, it came from the shape. So cyclical phenomenon, and then there is error. And obviously, uh, to model time series data, what we do is, as a first step, we we take the trend out, so we call it detrending. Then there is deseasonalization, and then if there is any cyclical component, we take that out also, and we try to analyze the irregular part. Okay, so that's what we do. Now regarding detrending, you have you don't I don't think you have studied anything at all till now. So here, by seasonal analysis, what we are saying is that we are trying to de-seasonalize a time series data. That is our objective here. So what we'll be looking at is seasonalization of time series data. Okay, now do not go too much into the term itself. It means a very simple thing. Time series data of a lot of things, for example, agricultural production or fishery production or even clothing production or sale of that. All of those comes with certain degree of seasonality. It means in certain seasons, sale of some things they increase, and in certain seasons they just reduce. Okay, not only because of the fact that some produce are some things are harvested in a typical season, but also our demands change according to the season itself. Okay, and for that matter, the sale of durable goods or even clothing, they follow actually seasonal pattern, right? So for example, if I'm looking at, say, say sale of warm clothes, then I must account for the winter season, because there will be seasonal effect of that. All right, or okay, so that will do that using dummies, apart from interaction effect. And for in case of interaction effect, already we talked about the multiplicative form, right, which is also the interaction form. And in one model, we saw how in one big regression model, we saw how that works for us. And then the third is piecewise linear regression. This is very interesting. It is also called, it's called use of something called a spline function. Now, basically, this term itself, it doesn't tell anything at all. But piecewise linear regression, it tells a lot of things. It basically says that if you have a data set of a huge data set covering a huge time period, and if you believe that there is a some critical value, let's say, okay, some critical value beyond which suddenly the values, the relationship change. So I'm not talking about recession here, I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about a relationship, a relationship between y and x, where there is some value of x equal to x star, let's say, beyond which the relationship between y and x changes suddenly. In that case, it will be not a good idea to use the same regression function for the entire data set. So we go for piecewise linear regression. And then again, for such a regression, dummy becomes very useful. After that, we'll look into something, some more interesting things in which dummy variable really becomes useful. For example, till date, always we have talked about mean. What about median? Can we work with median? Use of dummy variable allows us to do that. Then the last topic that we'll be touching slightly is that all this time we have talked about dummy appearing on the independent side, so appearing on the right side of our equation. So in place of x's. But what happens if my y variable becomes a dummy? Okay, that is quite possible, and as a possibility we must explore that. So as a possibility, working with y as dummy is something very different from dealing with x as dummy. Okay, so in that regard also we will learn something a bit, which will introduce you to later chapters. Two famous things, logit and probit model. They are very famous, logit and probit models. Okay, and a good base of the good knowledge of these two models uh, on future dates, it will help you actually even in the days of your campusing. It has that much of importance. Okay, all right, so now our first work is to see how this interaction effect is becomes very useful even when we are not taking a situation of alternative of Chow test. Not like that. In general, in a problem, if we allow interaction effect, then that itself becomes very useful. Okay. So let's look at an equation and define the corresponding variables. So let's say model 1. So obviously model 1 will be something, some kind of a model which is independent of interaction effect. So in this model, we will not have the interaction effect, and we'll look into the fact whether we are missing something. Okay, so what are they? So y equal to the hourly wage received. So hourly wage. What is x? X is the education received. Education received. And obviously to make it continuous, we are saying that it is in terms of years. And this in terms of, let's say, rupees. Now let's look at what these two dummies are. So D2 is 1 if female and 0 if non-female. Okay, so that definition actually kind of avoids all the gender issues. So it is 1 if non-white and non-Hispanic, that is what we say Spanish all the time, and 0 otherwise. So this is our model. Now this model doesn't have any interaction dummy, obviously all they are in additive form. So as we know that all they are in additive form. Now what is the problem here? Apparently there is no problem, but the only thing is that we have an implicit assumption here. The only problem is that we have made an implicit assumption here regarding the difference of wages with respect to gender and race. And the assumption is very interesting. The assumption is that if I get that, that if I evaluate this thing, that yi given expression yi given d2 equal to 1 and d3 equal to 0, which will be alpha 1 plus alpha 2. So if I evaluate that, what I'm saying is that if, let's say, alpha 2 is positive, then this will imply that hourly wages for female is higher than, so, non-female. So that much is fine. This is what it will mean. Okay, that the hourly wages for female is higher than non-female. What is the implicit assumption here? The implicit assumption in the statement is that is independent of whether someone is non-white, non-Hispanic or not. So that is independent of whether one is non-white or not, and non-Hispanic or not. So that means, to reframe the implicit assumption, what we are saying is that if there is a wage differential in the gender, that differential exists in both the races, okay, or both categories of race. Now that is something that may not be really true, okay, as you know that, kind of gender freedom, it varies from country to country, and it also varies from race to race. So considering that if I get hourly wages of female is higher, then that event or that reality will hold independent of these two categories of race is a strong implicit assumption. And by that, the alternative of this scenario, the other scenario, is also quite presumptuous in this sense, in the sense that now if I go for, let's say, the other scenario, that is, now if I write that expectation yi equal to d2 equal to 0 and d3 equal to 1, okay, and if I'll get alpha 1 plus alpha 3, and let's say if alpha 3 is negative, then again the implicit assumption is that the fact that the hourly wages are lower for non-white, non-Hispanic, okay, so lower wages of, okay, let's write like this, non-white, non-Hispanic is true across gender. That is independent of whether the non-white is a male or female or trans. So that is a very strong statement, okay? And obviously you'll be quite kind of right to expect that that is not the scenario. So then how to include the fact that there is some interaction between these two dummies, that there is some intersection region between this gender and this race, where you will get the result probably that the female wage for the white and Hispanic is higher, but the male wage for the non-white and non-Hispanic is higher. So what should we do to include that kind of a scenario? Okay. So for that, we need to include interaction. And we saw one form of interaction in the earlier example, where we considered a form of D2XT, and here we are looking at interaction of dummies. So in that case, here the interaction form will be D2, D3. Okay, so our multiplicative form. So we want to include that in the model. And when we'll include that, obviously our definition of dummies or categorical division will change. So we'll look into that also. Okay, so let's just look at the changed model. So what do you want to do to allow further categorization? We are going to add multiplicative form, and we will write it here. So plus alpha 4 d2i d3i plus alpha 5, sorry, plus beta xi plus ui. Okay, so now that becomes our new model. Okay, so let's see what it brings in. what it brings to us extra. Okay. So now if I calculate the same thing, expectation of yi, then things will change. So for example, now alpha 1 will be for benchmark category. What will be alpha 2? Obviously, it is the differential effect of being a female. And obviously, similarly, alpha 3 will be differential effect of being a non-white, non-Hispanic. And what is alpha 4? It's interaction, right? So it will be differential effect of being a female non-white, non-Hispanic, right? So we are taking basically the intersection that I was talking about. Okay. So what is the benchmark category here? What we are left with? We are left with male, white, or Hispanic. So by by introducing this, we have introduced the fact that the gender difference can be different for the race. So the male-female gap that can be different for non-white, non-Hispanic, and for white and Hispanic. Okay. So that is how using the interaction dummy, we kind of segregate cross effect or separate cross effect. Okay. It's not the case that always we have to do that, but obviously if there is a scope, if there is a chance, then allowing that is the right thing to do. Okay. All right. So now we'll go to the deseasonalization. And we'll see the role of dummies in deseasonalization. Okay. So here, following the Culture of Time series, we have 4 seasons. And by seasonal effect, we mean that the data set that we have, okay, ordered by time, it has some specific increment or reduction in a specific season. So it can be due to winter season, or it can be because of summer when the sale of cotton, light cotton increases, or maybe it can be early summer where the sale of ACs increase. So there are several seasonal effects that you can observe in a time series data. Also, if you now look at the offers that are given by all those companies, okay, you will see that there is a seasonal effect. So probably the only thing which doesn't have a seasonal effect is mobile. Every time you open, you will see lots of offers on the mobiles. But otherwise, the time series sale data, they have quite seasonality. Okay. So what is our work here? We are looking for deseasonalization, or as we say it all the time, seasonally adjusted time series. That means a time series data which doesn't have seasonal component. Okay. So how to do that? So let us consider a data, time series data, obviously, for 1978 to 1995. And it is the sale data of dishwasher, then garbage disposers, then refrigerators, and then washing machines. Obviously, you can understand that at least the last two things, they have a good connection with marriage, season of marriage, and starting a new life. So you can have a seasonal effect on that too also. So for example, when the season of marriage comes in India, sale of these things, or probably microwave oven, all of these things, they takes a peak. So they reach some high, and otherwise they don't. Okay. So how to clear out the seasonal pattern? Okay. So here is our model. As I said, 4 seasons. Right? Did I guess because okay, so 4 seasons. Right. And let's say YT is the sale of fridge. Okay. And what are D? So DI is 1 if there is, if one, no, not if there is, okay, let's write like this. Dy is 1 for the season I, 0 otherwise. Okay. So this for first season, second season, third season, fourth season. Now, as I said, that if there are 4 seasons, you must take 3 dummies or you erase the intercept term. So this model, it doesn't have any intercept term. So no intercept. So because of that, we have 4 dummies for 4 seasons. Also here our interest is not in the differential effects of some kind, given a benchmark. Here we just want to know the values in each of the seasons. Okay. All right. So basically, this model is quite similar to the first 1 or 2 dummy models that we have considered. Here, Y is being regressed on intercept, right? Right? Because if 1, 0, 0, that means YT equal to alpha 1 plus UY error. So basically, we are searching for different intercepts. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to write a model with numbers, which model again will be a bit different from this one. For in that one, we will have an intercept term and we will have season 1 as the benchmark to show that both the models are equally fine. Okay. So let's look at that model. So YT hat is, let's say, 13 plus 245 dt2 d2t, then 347 d3t minus 62 d4t. So what is the benchmark here? The benchmark is d1t, that is our season 1. Okay. Now, if I had estimated this model, what would have been the result? The result would have been quite interesting. It would have been 13 d1t, right? And then 13 plus 245, so 258 d2t. Then 13 plus this one, so 360 d3t, and then 13 minus this, so minus, I think it will be 49 d40. Okay, so now you understand, comparing these two models, how this actually works and why it is absolutely fine if you use 4 dummies or if you use 3 dummies and 1 intercept. Okay, all right. However, obviously, since you are working on refrigerator and refrigerator comes under durable goods, obviously it will be a better idea. Obviously, it will be a better idea. So you can improve the model in this way, include spending on durable goods. Spending on durable goods. So you can do that, right? Control it on the spending on durable goods, and you can have a better model. Okay. So I'll ask you to go through this example in more detail in the book. It's the example 9.6 in Gujarati. Okay, so this 6th example basically in chapter 9. So go through it. I'll ask you to do it. Okay, now let's say we have improved the model using spending on durable goods. Okay, so we'll look at the model and there will be some interesting thing to note. All right, so let's say we have included some xi also. So to include, let's say, beta xi plus ui, where, as I said, that xi is the expenditure on durable goods. Now, obviously, working with the time series data, you have the time series sale data of refrigerator as well as you have time series expenditure data on durable goods. Now, the unique advantage of using this xi in the while deseasonalizing is that the end result, that is the estimated model, in there you have deseasonalized both YT and XT. Okay, so that's a huge advantage, a very important advantage. Deseasonalizing X data and Y data simultaneously. So that is something that you can achieve bringing in the relevant X variable in this model. Okay, so that's a huge advantage, and obviously there is a theorem which guarantees this fact. Okay, so now we will move on to the third topic, that is piecewise linear regression, or the usage of, as I said, spline function. And I'll see there how using a dummy variable solves the problem. And remember, here we are doing something which is actually different form, actually different from what we have done in chow test. That is not something that we are doing here. Here the idea is that beyond some X star, the relationship suddenly changes. Okay. So in the next session, we'll look into that.